Sam Heughan, the beloved star of Outlander, set off a whirlwind of buzz and speculation after his latest appearance on the red carpet. Fans and press alike were left stunned as the Scottish actor stepped out in style. But it wasn't just his striking look that captured attention, it was what happened next that had everyone talking. Heughan, known for keeping a relatively private life despite his massive global fan base, sent shockwaves through the crowd when whispers spread about a shocking truth connected to his appearance. Paparazzi flashes caught subtle exchanges, lingering moments, and conversations that seemed to hint at more than just a glamorous evening. Social media erupted instantly, with fans dissecting every detail of his demeanor, outfit choice, and interactions throughout the night. The atmosphere turned electric as attendees noticed Heughan's unusually candid mood. Unlike his typically reserved red carpet moments, he leaned into the spotlight, sparking theories about whether he was teasing a personal revelation or preparing to drop major news about his career. Within hours, hashtags linking his name to the event trended worldwide, with fans demanding answers and speculating wildly about what the actor might be preparing to share. Behind the flashing cameras and the roaring buzz, industry insiders hinted that the storm may be tied to upcoming announcements surrounding both his personal life and professional ventures. Whether it's about Outlander's highly anticipated continuation, a surprise role outside the franchise, or a glimpse into his off-screen relationships, Sam Heughan has once again proven his ability to captivate audiences far beyond the screen. The red carpet may be over, but the firestorm of speculation continues, leaving fans on edge as they wait for the truth to be revealed.
Fans of Outlander are sounding the alarm, and their concerns echo a very familiar story. What was once hailed as one of television's most beautifully crafted historical dramas is now being compared to the disastrous downfall of Game of Thrones. The whispers have turned into a roar. Pacing issues, rushed storytelling, and character arcs that feel forced or abandoned are leaving longtime viewers uneasy. With the final chapters looming, many are wondering, could Outlander be walking down the same treacherous path that made Game of Thrones Season 8 one of the most controversial endings in TV history? Television history is full of shows that begin with brilliance, captivate their audiences for years, and then, somewhere along the way, lose sight of what made them so special. For the passionate fandom behind Outlander, a series that has woven together history, romance, and fantasy for nearly a decade, alarm bells are beginning to sound. A growing chorus of viewers is expressing concern that the show, once celebrated for its breathtaking storytelling and emotional depth, may be heading down the very same path that led to the spectacular collapse of Game of Thrones in its final, widely criticized season. The whispers of discontent have turned into open debates across social media platforms, with longtime fans warning that the déjà vu feels all too real. When Outlander first premiered, it swept audiences away with its unique blend of historical drama and time travel fantasy, anchored by the unforgettable chemistry between Katrina Balfe's Claire and Sam Heughan's Jamie. Every season, the series transported viewers from the misty highlands of Scotland to the battlefields of Culloden, the salons of Paris, the chaos of the American Revolution, and beyond. It was a show that made fans believe in love that defied centuries, while also paying careful attention to the details of history. Yet as the seasons have progressed and the story has edged closer to its conclusion, many fear the magic is starting to slip. Not unlike the cracks that first appeared in Game of Thrones before its rushed finale left fans in shock. Comparison is not accidental. Game of Thrones remains the cautionary tale of modern television, the once universally adored juggernaut that lost the trust of its audience by accelerating storylines, cutting corners on character development, and delivering a final season that critics and viewers alike labeled unsatisfying. For fans of Outlander, who have invested not just years but emotional energy into following Claire and Jamie's journey, the prospect of facing a similarly disappointing conclusion is almost too much to bear. They remember vividly the backlash when Game of Thrones seemed to abandon its careful build-up in favor of spectacle and shock. Now, as Outlander races toward its endgame, some are seeing troubling signs that history might repeat itself. Part of the concern lies in the pacing. Early seasons of Outlander were methodical, deliberate, and richly layered. The romance between Claire and Jaime was allowed to bloom naturally. Their struggles against history and circumstance unfolded with heartbreaking realism, and the supporting characters were given ample room to grow. But in more recent seasons, especially as the show has tried to cover increasingly sprawling material from Diana Gabaldon's novels, fans have noticed that certain storylines feel rushed, condensed, or glossed over entirely. They point to the danger of compressing vast amounts of narrative into shorter seasons, a mistake that Game of Thrones made when it shortened its final run and attempted to tie up massive plot lines in record time. Another red flag for viewers is the treatment of beloved characters. One of the hallmarks of Outlander has always been the emotional bond between its characters and the audience. Claire, Jaime, Brianna, Roger, and even secondary figures like Lord John Grey have earned devoted followings. But when characters are sidelined, their arcs feel incomplete, or their decisions seem inconsistent with their established personalities, fans grow uneasy. Game of Thrones suffered this fate when characters like Daenerys Targaryen, Jaime Lannister, and Jon Snow were rushed into finales that many felt betrayed their carefully built journeys. Outlander fans fear a similar fate for Claire and Jaime if the show tries to force them into an ending that prioritizes speed over emotional truth. The specter of Game of Thrones looms particularly large because of how invested the fan community is. Outlander is not just a television series. It has become a cultural phenomenon with conventions, fan art, podcasts, and endless discussions dissecting every detail. This mirrors the intensity of the Game of Thrones fandom, where theories, speculation, and devotion reached fever pitch. But that investment cuts both ways. When expectations are sky high, the potential for disappointment is enormous. Many viewers have already begun voicing dread that they will face the same heartbreak that Game of Thrones fans experienced, watching a show they loved unravel in its final chapters. Behind these concerns lies the tension between adaptation and conclusion. Diana Gabaldon's books continue to expand the world of Outlander, with the 9th novel recently released and a 10th on the horizon. Television series, however, has to navigate its own path, balancing fidelity to the source material with the constraints of screen time and episodic storytelling. This is not unlike the challenge that Game of Thrones faced when it surpassed George R.R. Martin's published novels and began charting its own course. Fans remember how controversial those choices became, and they fear that Outlander may be setting itself up for a similar clash between book canon and television necessity. It is also important to recognize the role of anticipation in shaping these fears. Outlander is heading toward its 8th and final season, and with that comes the immense pressure of sticking the landing. Every great television series is judged not only on the quality of its journey but on the resonance of its conclusion. Game of Thrones demonstrated just how devastating it can be when a finale undermines years of storytelling, and no fan wants to see Outlander's legacy tarnished in the same way. The idea that the series could stumble at the finish line after everything Claire and Jaime have endured is a nightmare scenario for those who have followed them since the very first episode. Fans are not just voicing vague anxiety, they are drawing direct comparisons between specific choices in Outlander and those that sank Game of Thrones. Some point to the shift in focus away from Claire and Jaime towards secondary characters, worried that the core love story is being diluted. Others worry that large-scale historical events like the looming American Revolution will be given insufficient weight or rushed resolutions, much like the infamous Battle of Winterfell was criticized for its dark visuals and hurried pacing. There is also unease about whether the show will properly honor its central themes of love, resilience, and survival, or if it will succumb to the temptation of shock value and spectacle, as Game of Thrones did in its final season. Despite these fears, there remains hope. Many fans still believe that the creative team behind Outlander has the capacity to avoid the mistakes that doomed Game of Thrones. The show's track record of heartfelt storytelling and respect for its characters offers a reason for optimism. Katrina Balfe and Sam Heughan continue to deliver powerful performances, and their commitment to their roles has never wavered. Diana Gabaldon remains actively involved with the series, offering a guiding hand that was largely absent from Game of Thrones when its ending veered away from the books. These factors could serve as safeguards against the pitfalls of rushed storytelling and inconsistent characterization. At its core, the debate surrounding Outlander is about trust. Fans trusted Game of Thrones and felt betrayed. Now they are wrestling with whether Outlander will earn or squander that same trust. The stakes feel incredibly high because, for so many viewers, this story is more than entertainment. It is a saga of love that transcends time, of characters who have become like family, of historical journeys that blend fantasy with reality. To see it all unravel in a way that feels careless or untrue would not just be disappointing, it would be devastating. Coming months will be crucial as production moves toward the end. Every choice will be scrutinized, every storyline debated, every leaked detail dissected. The comparisons to Game of Thrones are unlikely to fade. They will linger in the background like a ghost, reminding everyone of what can happen when ambition outpaces execution. But perhaps Outlander will rise to the challenge, defy the fears, and deliver a finale that is remembered not for controversy but for triumph. Fans are holding their breath, caught between dread and hope, desperate for reassurance that the story they have cherished for so long will be given the ending it deserves. As the discussion rages on, one thing is certain: the stakes for Outlander's final season have never been higher. The show is standing at a crossroads, with one path leading toward a legacy of enduring greatness and the other toward the bitter memory of disappointment. Whether it will be remembered as the series that stuck the landing or as another heartbreaking cautionary tale remains to be seen. But for now, the fear of déjà vu looms large, and fans cannot shake the haunting question: is Outlander destined to follow Game of Thrones into controversial territory, or will it break free and prove that history does not have to repeat itself? For nearly a decade, Outlander has carried its audience through sweeping landscapes, heartbreaking romances, and epic battles across time and history. Yet as the series prepares to close in on its final chapters, a shadow looms over its legacy. That shadow belongs to none other than Game of Thrones, a show that dominated pop culture only to stumble so badly in its last season that it became one of the most divisive finales in television history. Now, fans of Outlander fear they are beginning to see the same warning signs, and the whispers of discontent are quickly growing louder. What began as a handful of murmurs online has turned into a heated debate across forums, Twitter threads, and fan podcasts. Concern is not abstract. It is anchored in the very choices the show has been making in recent seasons. Viewers have noticed pacing that feels increasingly uneven, storylines that seem rushed or abandoned, and character arcs that appear inconsistent with everything that came before. These are the same criticisms that haunted Game of Thrones as it raced toward the finish line, cutting seasons shorter and forcing beloved characters into decisions that made little sense. For Outlander, a series that has prided itself on deep character work and attention to detail, the idea that it could falter in the same way feels almost unthinkable, and yet the signs are difficult to ignore. The issue of pacing has become one of the most hotly discussed topics. In the early seasons, Outlander took its time, allowing Claire and Jaime's love story to blossom with care and giving the historical backdrop the weight it deserved. The rebellion in Scotland, the haunting aftermath of Culloden, and the intricate web of Parisian politics were all explored with a richness that kept fans hooked. More recently, however, viewers say the storytelling has felt compressed, with major historical events and personal struggles passing by in quick succession. They worry that the show, in trying to wrap up sprawling narratives before its end, is sacrificing the depth that made it special. It is a criticism eerily reminiscent of what Game of Thrones endured when it attempted to rush the White Walker War and the downfall of Daenerys into just a handful of episodes. Character arcs, too, are drawing concern. Fans who have walked with Claire and Jamie through war, trauma, and separation are fiercely protective of their journey. Yet some are questioning whether the characters' decisions still align with their carefully built histories. This was the same frustration that plagued Game of Thrones viewers, who watched with disbelief as Jaime Lannister seemingly abandoned his redemption arc, or as Daenerys Targaryen made a sudden, shocking heel turn without the gradual build-up fans expected. For Outlander, the danger lies in failing to honor the bond it has built between its characters and the audience. Any misstep in how Claire, Jaime, Brianna, or Roger are written in the final season could tarnish the emotional investment fans have carried for years. Another troubling similarity is the shift in focus. In the early years, Outlander was unapologetically about Claire and Jaime. Their love story was the foundation, and everything else unfolded around it. As the show has expanded to include the next generation, some fans feel the spotlight has drifted too far, diluting the central romance that drew them in. This mirrors what happened in Game of Thrones when the show broadened its scope so much that the once beloved intimate character moments became secondary to large-scale spectacle. While fans of Outlander understand the necessity of growth and evolution, they fear that too much fragmentation will leave the ending feeling disjointed and unsatisfying. Another troubling similarity is the shift in focus. In the early years, Outlander was unapologetically about Claire and Jaime. Their love story was the foundation, and everything else unfolded around it. As the show has expanded to include the next generation, some fans feel the spotlight has drifted too far, diluting the central romance that drew them in. This mirrors what happened in Game of Thrones when the show broadened its scope so much that the once beloved intimate character moments became secondary to large-scale spectacle. While fans of Outlander understand the necessity of growth and evolution, they fear that too much fragmentation will leave the ending feeling disjointed and unsatisfying. The looming weight of history also plays a role in fans' anxieties. With the American Revolution on the horizon, the series faces the monumental task of weaving its characters into events that shaped an entire nation. There is excitement in seeing how Claire and Jaime's lives intersect with these defining moments, but there is also dread. Fans recall how Game of Thrones failed to deliver a meaningful resolution to the long-promised showdown with the Night King, a storyline that had been teased since the very beginning. They worry that Outlander may similarly rush through or mishandle one of its most anticipated historical arcs, leaving viewers feeling cheated after years of build-up. Social media, of course, has amplified the conversation. In Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and TikTok discussions, fans are already dissecting each new development and warning that the show risks alienating its core audience if it doesn't slow down and honor its roots. Some use phrases like déjà vu and history repeating itself, while others flatly declare that they feel burned once before by Game of Thrones and won't forgive another misstep in the same vein. Parallels have become so striking that even casual viewers are taking note, asking if Outlander is destined to share the same fate as its fantasy predecessor. Yet amidst the worry, there remains a cautious sense of hope. Unlike Game of Thrones, which famously ran ahead of its source material, Outlander still has Diana Gabaldon's novels as a compass. The author herself has been more actively engaged in the television adaptation than George R.R. Martin was with his, offering fans a sliver of reassurance that the series won't veer too wildly off course. Moreover, Katrina Balfe and Sam Heughan continue to bring undeniable passion to their roles, grounding the series even when plotlines feel shaky. Their performances are a reminder of what drew viewers in the first place, and for many fans, their presence is enough to keep hope alive that the show will stick the landing. The debate ultimately speaks to the stakes of television storytelling in the modern era. Fans are no longer passive viewers, they are vocal, analytical, and emotionally invested. They remember being let down by Game of Thrones, and they are determined not to let it happen again without speaking up. Parallels they are drawing between the two shows are not just about television, they are about the fragile contract of trust between creators and audiences. When that trust is honored, a series can become legendary. When it is broken, it can become infamous. As Outlander moves toward its endgame, it stands at a crossroads. One path leads to a conclusion that honors the love, sacrifice, and resilience that have defined Claire and Jaime's journey. The other risks slipping into the same traps that undid Game of Thrones, prioritizing speed or spectacle over emotional truth. For now, fans are holding their breath, watching closely, and bracing themselves for what comes next. Question that lingers, haunting every discussion, is whether Outlander will be remembered as the series that defied the curse of bad finales, or as another beloved show that collapsed under the weight of its own ambitions. Another troubling similarity is the shift in focus. In the early years, Outlander was unapologetically about Claire and Jaime. Their love story was the foundation, and everything else unfolded around it. As the show has expanded to include the next generation, some fans feel the spotlight has drifted too far, diluting the central romance that drew them in. This mirrors what happened in Game of Thrones when the show broadened its scope so much that the once beloved intimate character moments became secondary to large-scale spectacle. While fans of Outlander understand the necessity of growth and evolution, they fear that too much fragmentation will leave the ending feeling disjointed and unsatisfying. The looming weight of history also plays a role in fans' anxieties. With the American Revolution on the horizon, the series faces the monumental task of weaving its characters into events that shaped an entire nation. There is excitement in seeing how Claire and Jaime's lives intersect with these defining moments, but there is also dread. Fans recall how Game of Thrones failed to deliver a meaningful resolution to the long-promised showdown with the Night King, a storyline that had been teased since the very beginning. They worry that Outlander may similarly rush through or mishandle one of its most anticipated historical arcs, leaving viewers feeling cheated after years of build-up. Social media, of course, has amplified the conversation. In Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and TikTok discussions, fans are already dissecting each new development and warning that the show risks alienating its core audience if it doesn't slow